Hello, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated, and before I get started, I just want to let you know that if you go to rdklinc.com and you click on Contact here, you can sell me your broken MacBook. Yeah, I buy all sorts of broken MacBooks. I will supply you with a return label so you can send them to me at no charge. And if you go to the Answers tab, you can post a MacBook repair question, and I will answer it for free. There's totally no catch, just trying to build my website and answer questions. So please go on there, post a question, and I will definitely answer it for you. So anyway, I am posting this video because I want to answer a question that I'm asked constantly and that people never seem to get, which is how to read MacBook batteries or laptop batteries or probably batteries in general. Operating systems really just don't give you a lot of information to go by. They give you sort of insufficient diagnostics, I guess you could say. So people just never quite get a grasp on how to read their battery. And so what I'm going to do is just pull up the statistics of a dozen different batteries and just sort of let you know how to look at the data that you're seeing. But first is probably the most important thing of all to understand. This concept that batteries lose capacity over time. And I think it's best understood if you think of a car. So if you have a car with a 20-gallon gas tank and it's the meter says it's full, well, that's 20 gallons times 30 miles is 600 miles. So you know you're pretty much set. But imagine if that imagine if that gas tank had a 1-gallon capacity, literally only a gas tank in a car with a 1-gallon capacity. It will say full, but you're only going 30 miles before that thing is empty. So, you know, don't get excited driving down the road thinking of a full gas tank, because it's going to be empty very soon. This carries over to laptops. You might have a 7-year-old battery with 10% of its original capacity. So even though the computer with its insufficient information tells you that it's full, it might die in 20 minutes. So that's something very important to keep in mind. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go from battery to battery, and I'm going to tell you what I think of these batteries, basically. I'm using a tool, a free Mac tool called Coconut Battery. Highly recommend it. It's free. You can buy it if you want. I recommend buying it because it's a great tool. I like to support tools that help me out. But what it does basically is it fills in the gaps, and it gives you the actual information that you really need to know that the operating system is sort of trying to hide from you. So here you have, you know, you don't really need, this is not important, but you have the MacBook model, manufacture date. So this battery, basically you have what is a design capacity, so sort of the original capacity, like when it was a new battery, it had 5770 milliamp hours. And now what it has is 63.3% of that. Remember the gas tank. This battery has 63.3% of the original 100% of the gas tank. So it's probably several years old, and it's just been depleted in capacity to that amount. So let's see, manufacture date 2011. You know, so it's not a new battery. 396 load cycles. So what's a load cycle? That's a common term. A load cycle is a full charge and a full depletion of the battery. So this battery has, well, you can't say for sure, but it's basically been charged and discharged, used 396 times. This number is deceptive. Most batteries are not charged all the way, and then they're not used all the way down. So it's hard to say what this number really means. My laptops, I basically keep them sitting there like a desktop, and I never take them on the road. So a battery might only ever get to 30 load cycles with me, even though it might be years old. So this number is a little bit deceptive. You want to look at it in combination with other elements that I'll show you, not just look at the load cycle number. But generally, probably 100 load cycles per year is typical. So 396, that's probably a 4-year-old battery. Could be 7 years old. You don't know. But you know, typically 100 per battery. Typically, if you're looking at used batteries and you want to know, hey, is this a good used battery? Typically, you want to be under 300-400 load cycles. If you start getting up to 5, 6, 7, 8, that's you know, that's a little suspicious. You probably don't want one up that high. So OS 10 battery status, good. What that is saying is that it doesn't have a service alert. Newer operating systems will tell you service battery, replace soon, replace now. These are service alerts. They basically just go by load cycles and possibly other factors to give you a sense of how good the battery is. I don't like service alerts because they don't give you this full array of information that you need to know. They're just kind of dumbing it down and saying, hey, replace now. But it's not bad to have it say good. You know, if it says good, then you're probably in good shape. It's always good to see that it says good, especially because if you're selling laptops, you don't want your customer to see, you know, replace now, replace soon. You know, they don't necessarily understand everything here, and they're just going to consider that to be a bad battery. So anyway, this battery is not charged. 0 milliamp hours max charge, 3651, which is 63.3% of the original capacity, 5770. So go on to the next one. This is pretty similar. So this battery, well, actually has 700 load cycles. That's not great. You know, I don't want to completely judge a battery by that load cycle number. If the other statistics are good, you might very well have a pretty good battery. So 70% of original capacity, that's not, if I sell a computer, I generally want it to have, I'd say 75 to, you know, to 100% of original capacity. So 70%, that's kind of on the lower edge, plus the 700 load cycles. You know, I'm not real excited about this battery. Maybe I'd put it in a lower end machine, or a, you know, lower grade machine, I guess you could say. Although the OS is still saying it's good, so that's positive. One thing I would definitely say is these numbers are indicators, but you'd never know. The only way to really know what's going on with the battery is to test it, and test it means charge it up all the way, then pull the power and see if this battery proves that it's reliable. You know, put a day into putting the battery through a load cycle before you make an absolute determination on it, because the numbers can lie. You can also see things like a status that says, you know, service battery, that might go away with a load cycle. A load cycle tends to kind of refresh the battery's memory, so to speak. So yeah, before you ship a machine to a customer, always test it by giving it a full load cycle. Okay, this one has higher capacity, 83.4%, and good load cycles, 294. It's not charged. Sorry about that. A lot of these batteries are just in a pile sitting there, so a lot of them are not going to be have much of a charge. But it says status poor, discharging. I don't know whether it's connected or not. If yeah, it's hard to say what that means. I would give this battery a load cycle and just see what it says. See if that poor improves. If it doesn't, I would probably be suspicious. Poor probably indicates replace now on a Mac, I would guess. So yeah, I would give this battery a chance, but not necessarily looking good. Here's another one. This looks like a pretty good battery to me. 422 load cycles is on the upper end, but it's not bad. The OS is telling you it's good. 85%, that's decent. So, 4953 milliamp hours is 85.8% of 5700. So, I would charge this up, give it a cycle, but, it's probably looking at a good battery. All right. Wow, this is a really good battery. So 86%, 50 load cycles, probably less than a year of use, and it's charging. So 26.3%. I'm glad we got one that is actually charging. So yeah, I would be happy with this battery. Always want to test it, but yeah, that battery's looking good. Pretty much the same with this one. A little higher on the load cycles, but well under 300. That's great. Just starting to charge here. One thing to keep in mind with batteries is if a battery has been sitting, they may take a while to start charging. The way I think of it, it's like I don't know, like a brick of ice. Like it has to warm up. It has to turn to liquid before it can start to actually heat up and start boiling. I don't know if that's a great analogy, but basically an old battery that's been sitting there is going to be really dead. So if there's any possibility of it coming back, it needs to just sit and charge for a while before it will start accumulating. And once it starts accumulating, it should start jumping up by about 10 or 12 milliamp hours every, I don't know, 15 seconds. And if it's a good battery, it will keep doing that all the way up through the end of the charge. If it's not a good battery, it will just not charge at all, or it will start accumulating very slowly, like 2 or 3 at a time, which generally indicates that it's not going to get there. A good battery should charge fully in a matter of 2-3 hours. A battery that takes 15 hours to charge, definitely be suspicious of that battery. But this one's looking good. So this is a case that comes around now and then. You see the numbers make no sense. The design capacity says 0, which doesn't make any sense. It's not getting any data here. And the numbers are just way out of line, like 10 times what a battery should be. So be very suspicious of batteries like this. Generally, they're not good. They may kind of work, but you just, because their numbers are thrown off, they will say things like, fully charged until they're dead. So it'll look like you have a full battery, but then it'll die suddenly. So these are not good ones for the customers to get because it'll sort of not make sense. It's worth putting a load cycle onto the battery just to see if it clears it, it refreshes it out, and then it might be good. But you just don't. From this, you can only assume it's bad. 32,000 load cycles just makes no sense at all. So, all right, good battery, 180 load cycles, status good, 90% capacity. It's not charged yet, but yeah, every indication is that this is a good battery. You want to look at the MagSafe adapter and see what the light looks like. I can tell you because it says charging here that it's probably amber. If it's not charging and this it's green, for example, one thing you want to do is reset the SMC on a MacBook. Again, if a battery's been sitting for a long time, sometimes it needs to be jump-started, so to speak. And so if you have a green light, it says it's not charging, resetting the SMC can bring sort of jumpstart a lot of batteries back into life. So something to keep in mind. This one, again, this is a suspicious battery. Load cycles are fine, capacity is great, but status is poor, unfortunately. Discharging, I don't know if it's plugged in or not. If it is, that's definitely bad. If it's not, well, if it's not, that makes sense. Well, if if it's not, this is plugged in because it has no charge. So if it was not plugged in, there's no charge to keep the machine powered on. So this may be a bad battery, or it could benefit possibly from an SMC reset, like I said before, if it's connected and yet there's a green light and it says discharging. So I would reset the SMC on this one. You want to get this to charging. You want to not see that poor indicator if possible. If you reset the SMC and give this a load cycle and that poor goes away, then you might be in okay shape. It's a shame because the numbers, the load cycles, and the capacity look good. Very similar, 382% capacity. Poor, yeah, basically exactly the same situation. I want to talk a little bit about third-party batteries versus OEM batteries. OEM, obviously better, but 3-4 times more expensive. You know, you can get a new battery for 20-30 bucks. You know, 1 out of 10 is going to be kind of flaky. They're only going to last 3 to 6 months, probably. And I hate to say that because, you know, as a refurbisher, we need to have high quality third-party batteries because it's just not practical to include a $100 OEM battery in a refurbished laptop. But you know, the facts are the facts. There aren't that many great third-party batteries out there. So you know, if given the choice between a 200 load cycle 5-year-old battery that is OEM and has a 85% capacity and a brand new third-party battery, I'll take the OEM. You know. And again, I hate to say that. I wish there was a great third-party, low-cost alternative. I would buy thousands of them. But, you know, they tend to not stack up against OEM. That's just kind of how it goes. OEM is original end manufacturer. What I mean by that is made by the manufacturer, made by Apple, as opposed to made by, you know, some vendor in China. Want to state, too, though, that you know, third party is legitimate. Third party is not generally counterfeit. There's a big movement to call third party counterfeit, which is just wrong. You know, counterfeit means it's in violation of a trademark. It means it's got an Apple symbol. It says MagSafe. It tricks you into thinking it's an Apple battery. It's a technical definition. It's either counterfeit or it's not. It's trying to fool you by infringing upon trademarks, or it's not. And if it's not, then it's legitimate. It's not OEM, it's not Apple, but it is a it deserves to exist. You know, there's no legal issue with, you know, providing a third-party product. In fact, we need third-party products. So anyway, enough with the rant. Here's the next one. This is a newer. This is actually my own personal machine. So it's got a newer version of Coconut battery. There are different versions for different operating systems, things like that. So I just replaced the battery. It is cycle count 0, so it's brand new. And yeah, 100% capacity, good, fortunately. Like I said, I always keep it on my desk, barely discharge it at all, so it's connected to power right now. And it's not charging. But it's only at 97.9% of the full capacity. So why is that? Well, batteries are kind of strange creatures. You know, they're sort of oddly organic in a way. Like they're not exact in the way you would expect them to be. So every battery will have its own sort of unique characteristics, I guess, and the numbers are going to be a little bit different from each battery. So even though this is a brand new battery, you know, you don't necessarily expect that to be 8440 Actually, this is saying it has a higher capacity than the design capacity, which I'm not sure that makes sense. But yeah, expect don't expect batteries to be exact. If you buy 10 batteries, don't expect the numbers to be identical in all of them. Just as long as they're in sort of the ballpark of what looks good, that's acceptable. So back to the normal ones. This one has no charge. Good design capacity. I mean, well, design capacity is what it is, but good remaining capacity, I meant to say, 90%. That's unusually good for an old battery. 218 load cycles, but it says poor, so that's probably a replace now. Again, I would put it through a load cycle, kick the tires, see what a refresh of the battery system does to the numbers. But that's unfortunate to see poor there. Want to talk a little bit about swollen batteries. Any battery that is swollen, get rid of it immediately. There's no way to salvage a swollen battery, even if it's working. It's a fire hazard. It might explode your computer and push the trackpad out of the top of the computer. If you have a battery that's gotten swollen, get rid of it right now. Disconnect it from your computer. Never turn on a computer with a swollen battery. Put it in fire-resistant packaging and recycle it now. There's nothing good about a swollen battery, even if it's just swollen a little bit, because it means bad things are happening within that battery. So anyway, this is pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I hope that gave you some insight into how batteries work, and please let me know if you have more questions. Post on my answer site, please, please, please. I'm trying to build up my website so that it's viable and thriving and all of that. So it would really mean a lot to me if you went onto the answers site and posted a question or two. I will, answer as thoroughly as I can. And like I said before, if you go to the contact page, you can put in your information about your old broken MacBook, and I will give you a quote and send you a prepaid label to ship it to me, and then I'll pay you when I get it. So anyway, hope this has been useful, and I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.